Advertising. It's something we all unanimously hate. No one wants to have the thing they're watching interrupted by someone trying to sell them some random crap. It's also everywhere. Websites, TV channels, billboards, fridges, my goddamn high school assemblies, and even here. And what usually makes it even worse is that oftentimes the ads themselves are just bad, even from simply just being boring, which is actually the better option. You know, stuff like, oh, our paper towels are very absorbent, which is just like, cool mate, I don't really care though. Or even worse, because they're cringe. Brands attempting to hop on popular trends and be hashtag hip with the kids, which leads to some of the most unfunny pieces of content ever created. There have probably been funerals that were funnier to sit through than anything Duolingo or KFC Espanol have ever posted. Oh, and I guess there's also a third type of ad, which is just porn pretty much. But surprisingly, there are actually ads which don't suck, and are even entertaining to watch. They're incredibly rare, only making up about 0.1% of all ads, but they do exist, and they really are quite memorable, and therefore effective. However, they're evidently really hard to make, especially consistently. Even if a brand is able to make one good ad, the next one will probably just be ass again. But there is one brand that stands out from the crowd, and has been consistently creating incredible commercials for about 30 years at this point. Commercials that are so good that they have their own merchandise, stores, and even multiple video games. I am of course talking about M&Ms. I genuinely love the M&Ms marketing, can you tell? I love the characters, their personalities, the commercials, the merchandise, everything. And what's crazy is I don't even really like M&Ms that much. Like, I'll eat them, but they're not my favourite candy. They're just kinda fine, I guess. So that speaks volumes about how good M&M's marketing is. It's so good that me, as someone who doesn't really like the product, buys the product. That or it speaks volumes about how fucking stupid I am. Everyone knows the M&M's characters, and what I find particularly interesting about them compared to other mascots like the Kool-Aid Man or Mr. Peanut is the fact that they are actually characters, as in they have individual personalities that are actually shown and explored throughout the many commercials they appear in, which is a really interesting thing for characters that only exist to sell you a product. So today, I wanted to do a deep dive into the wacky world of M&Ms, specifically focusing on the marketing. Our story, as you would expect, begins with the creation of the actual product, which as you wouldn't expect, begins with the Spanish Civil War. In the late 1930s, Forrest Mars Sr., who is the son of Frank Mars, founder of Mars Inc., saw Spanish Civil War soldiers eating little chocolate candies that were coated in a hard outer sugar shell, which would prevent them from melting, which was good because it meant the soldiers would be able to carry these around with them even if it was summer, without fear of them melting, unlike regular chocolate, which would definitely melt in the heat. Forrest liked this concept of chocolate that could withstand heat, and so, after he returned to the United States, he would create his own process of making this kind of candy, with him then receiving a patent for it on March 3rd, 1941. To actually create the candy itself, Forrest would team up with a guy named Bruce Murray, who was the son of William F.R. Murray, who was president of the Hershey Company. This is where the name M&M's comes from, Mars and Murray. This partnership allowed M&M's to be made using Hershey chocolate, and with that, production officially began in 1941. From here, M&M's would sell fairly well, and eventually they'd actually get their first big break when the United States Army got involved. Because of the chocolate's unique ability to not melt in high temperatures, the Army saw it as a good way for soldiers to be able to carry chocolates through all kinds of different climates, and so they became M&M's biggest customer, and then their only customer, as during World War II, M&M's were exclusively sold to the military, since I guess the factory wasn't big enough to meet the demands of both the military and the general public. In fact, the factory wasn't even big enough to meet the demands of the military, which led to them having to move production to an even bigger factory. Eventually, World War II ended, and then M&M's could be given to everyone again. Yay. A couple years later, in 1949, M&M's would introduce their now famous tagline, "The milk chocolate that melts in your mouth, not in your hand," which was a very effective way of quickly communicating to the customer the USP of the product, and why it's better than the other chocolates available. And for science, I tested this and, sure enough, it didn't melt in my hand. And when I put them in my mouth, they did melt. So this statement is true. Anyway, let's get back on track. Up until this point, M&M's were just coloured circles, but in 1950, that changed when they began to brand the M&M's by imprinting an M onto each one of them, with this M originally being black, but this was then later changed to white in 1954, presumably because white was just a visually more appealing colour to be printed onto candy. 1954 is actually an important year for M&M's for multiple reasons. Not only did it introduce the famous white M, still seen on every M&M to this day, as well as a whole bunch of M&M's merchandise, but it also introduced a new type of M&Ms, that being peanut M&Ms. Peanuts coated in chocolate, then coated in a candy shell, which, as I'm sure you're aware, would go on to be very popular. But shockingly, that's not all 1954 had to offer to M&Ms, as it also finally brings us to their very first TV commercial. As far as we're aware, I mean, it was the 50s, and this was probably seen as just a commercial rather than something truly important, so there could be some earlier unarchived stuff, and with the lack of TV recording equipment, it's honestly a miracle we even have this. This commercial features a guy showing us his hands, with the one on the left having melted chocolate in it, and the one on the right having M&Ms in it, which of course are not melted because M&Ms melt in your mouth, not in your hand. Basically, they're telling the viewer why M&Ms are the superior choice of chocolate. The guy then goes on to introduce the new peanut M&Ms to the viewer, which makes sense given that they had only been introduced this same year. Then the second half of the ad features the earliest iteration of the Spokescandies. Did I ever explain what a Spokescandy is? Okay, basically the sentient M&Ms who you see in the commercials advertising the products are referred to as Spokescandies. This version of the Spokescandies is essentially the same idea as what the ones we know and love today ended up being, just M&Ms with legs and arms, with the only thing that's changed over the years being how exactly that design is executed. However, interestingly, there is actually footage from the Food Network which appears to be from an even earlier partially lost commercial that shows an earlier design of the Spokescandies, with this design featuring the M&M as just the head, giving the Spokescandies an entire body and clothes. These are also featured on a wall showcasing the evolution of the Spokescandies at M&M's World London, and the date they give for these guys there is 1954, and they actually list this iteration as 1957. So there would then be even more commercials released throughout the 50s that all kind of followed the same format of showing how other chocolates melt but M&Ms don't, just in different scenarios. Then going into the 60s, 1962 would see a design change for the Spokescandies, with them going from this to this. They basically modernized their designs with them looking similar to other cartoons from the 60s. There's a lot of differences between these two designs, but I think the most notable change is the placement of the M on the characters. The old design had their faces be in the M itself, whereas here their faces are above the M's, with the M's being on their chest now, much like the designs we know today. They then change up the format, introducing a new kind of commercial. These new commercials would show a scenario in which a chocolatey mess has been created. And they'd show these brown handprints on screen, which I guess are chocolatey handprints, before the M&Ms come in to save the day, with the commercials stating,
M&M's plain and peanut chocolate candies. The good guys.
These versions of the Spokescandies have the same idea of the previous ones of being M&Ms with limbs, but now they're actually real M&Ms, who simply have white dots and a line for their face, with the face actually being moved back to being in the M instead of above it, which I think looks worse, especially since their facial features are white and so is the M, making it visually unappealing. Also, them simply having white dots for eyes and a line for a mouth makes it pretty hard for them to really show emotions, so it's no wonder this design didn't stick, and this commercial format was changed starting in 1971 when the M&Ms were made 2D again. These designs feature M&Ms with white limbs and faces actually capable of showing emotion, since they have eyes that aren't just white dots, as well as eyebrows and an actual mouth, with the M's also once again being on their chests. The 70s iteration of the commercials would also see them commonly use two very notable M&Ms in lead roles often, these being a red chocolate M&M and a yellow peanut M&M, seemingly the earliest form of the iconic duo. At this point, all the M&Ms pretty much had the same personality, and red and yellow don't behave anything like they do currently. A lot of these 70s commercials showed scenarios in which people had chocolate all over their hands, and it creating a problem, where red and yellow would then come in and save the day by giving them M&Ms, which, as has been very well established, don't create a chocolate mess. Other commercials from this decade showed M&Ms in an animated world, just kinda doing stuff, a notable one being the M&M's Man commercial, where we're introduced to the M&M's Man, who, as is stated in the commercial, dunks M&M's in candy so that there's no chocolate mess.
Who dunks M&M's in chocolate? Take a guess. Who covers them in candy so there is no chocolate mess? The M&M's Man.
He's basically the M&M's god, I guess. They were seemingly trying to make the M&M's Man a kind of mascot for the brand, with him later going on to appear as a real guy in late 70s commercials, where he gave out M&M's, which I mean, I guess McDonald's did a similar thing with Ronald McDonald, and that worked for them. So anyway, the M&M's man was later abandoned, and they focused on the little candy mascots instead. Going into the 80s now, we'd see pretty much the same designs for the Spokescandies, only now just more polished. Some little changes had been made, but nothing major. I'll just put some side-by-sides on screen. The commercials showing red and yellow in the real world continued into this decade, and so did the ones showing M&Ms in their animated world. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess. They learned their lesson from the M&M's man. Finally, we've reached the 90s, a very important decade. The start of the decade saw more 2D animated commercials, but then, in 1994, we'd get our first CG M&M's commercial. The earliest CG commercials were done by Blue Sky Studios, and the designs of the M&Ms here are essentially just the 2D designs turned into 3D models, so they look pretty much the same. These commercials showed Red and Yellow, who still hadn't been given their current personalities at this point, interacting with celebrities who are eating M&Ms. Anyway, finally 1995 comes, and this is where the Spokescandies designs we know and love are finally introduced. This variant of the characters was designed by a man named Will Vinton, who is most well known for his claymation works, and is where the characters became actual characters who were given individual personalities. Originally, there was only the two Spokescandies, Red and Yellow, with Red being cynical, sarcastic, and somewhat selfish at times, and Yellow being very happy but also kinda gullible. Red is a chocolate M&M and was originally voiced by John Lovett, but his voice actor was changed to Billy West only about a year after the character's introduction in 1996. Yellow is a peanut M&M who was originally voiced by John Goodman until 1996, where he too was changed, this time to J.K. Simmons. Now, Red and Yellow wouldn't remain the only Spokescandies for very long, as the same year they were introduced, M&M's launched an advertising campaign where viewers were able to vote on which new colour would be added to M&M's packets by calling in, with the choices being blue, pink, or purple. The winning colour ended up being blue, and so, to announce this, M&M's would introduce the character Blue as a new Spokescandy. Blue is shown to be a cool character. He's a chill and nonchalant guy, basically, and he's voiced by Rob Pruitt, with his voice actor never having changed, unlike the other characters. The commercial that introduced Blue to the world followed Red and Yellow being upset that Blue's getting all the attention in this commercial, because he's just so freaking cool and awesome. And so, after the two come across a bucket of blue paint, they paint themselves blue and tie up the other blue M&Ms to take their place in the commercial. However, they are ultimately caught. The main cast of characters now consisted of red, yellow, and blue, the primary colours actually, and they continue to appear in various commercials. But there was a problem. All the M&Ms were male. There was no female M&Ms. What a tragedy. This would all change on January 12th, 1997, when the character Miss Green made her debut. Miss Green is a green milk chocolate M&M who has feminine lips, eyelashes, and most notably, sexy white boots, which I promise will genuinely be important for the story later. She's voiced by Cree Summer, and her whole shtick is that she's attractive and seductive, with like everyone thirsting over her because she's just so fit, with the joke here obviously being that people in the commercials are attracted to what is basically a circle with legs and arms. And it's funny because of just how absurd that is. Like, no one would really be attracted to the green M&M. Right? Now, believe it or not, but there's actually like a backstory to why the green M&M is so sexy. So basically, this little gag originates from an old rumour started back in the 70s that the green M&Ms contained an aphrodisiac. An aphrodisiac, for those unaware, is a thing that essentially makes people aroused. So the rumour was that green M&Ms make people horny. Shockingly, this wasn't actually true, and for science again, I will actually test this. Here's a bunch of green M&Ms. You know, I feel nothing. But still, this is the origin as to why the green M&M in the commercials turns people on. Also, side note, but like, there are a ton of really sexual M&Ms commercials for some reason. I'm not trying to call them out by pointing this fact out, because at the end of the day, they're still just M&Ms, there's only so sexual they can really be. They're not like on the level of whatever the fuck Carl's Jr. does. The M&Ms ones are just funny, especially that one you might have seen where it's implied a husband catches his wife sleeping with another guy, only for it to be revealed it's red, and she seemingly wanted to eat him, and if that wasn't bad enough, Yellow was sat in the closet watching the whole time apparently. Cuckolding is canon to the M&M's lore. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, so in these early green commercials, they'd sexualize Miss Green for comedic effect. The main M&M's cast now consisted of 4 characters, but then a 5th would be introduced in 1999, that being Orange. Orange is a crispy or pretzel M&M. His whole thing is he worries a lot. That's his character, he's always scared, and he's voiced by Eric Kirchberger. So now the M&M's cast consisted of 5 characters, and it would stay this way for for many, many years. Now, over the years the characters had existed, something interesting happened. Because they actually had personalities and people were exposed to them a lot due to the fact the commercials were constantly aired on TV, people became somewhat attached to them, in like a similar way to how you'd be attached to a TV character or something. People got to know these characters and learn about them through the many commercials, so they became very recognizable in a way other mascots weren't. Like, people knew who Pillsbury Doughboy or Mr. Clean were, but they didn't know anything about them as people, as weird as that sounds to say. The M&M's characters worked so well because you could probably relate to them. With there being 5 characters who each had such different personalities, you could probably relate to at least one of them in some way. I mean, come on. And this meant people liked the M&M's in the same way they'd like fictional characters like Homer Simpson or something, and less so like how they'd like mascots. The M&M's commercials had not only managed to promote the M&M's candy, but it also popularized the Spokescandies at the same time in a completely different way. I mean, as stated before, I think M&M's are just fine, but I still own a bunch of M&M's merch because I just like the characters, and so naturally, with this popularity, M&M's decided to capitalize off of it. So back on October 18th, 1997, M&M's officially opened the very first M&M's World, being located in Las Vegas. M&M's Worlds are basically giant stores that are tourist locations dedicated to selling M&M's candy and M&M's merchandise, and they are huge and awesome. They're so big and well decorated, and it's sick. Like, look at the outside of the building. They have giant versions of the Spokescandies. That's so freaking awesome. As of today, there are 8 different stores located in major tourist locations all around the world. These being Las Vegas, as was previously mentioned, New York, which opened on December 7th, 2006, London, which opened June 13th, 2011, Shanghai, which opened August 8th, 2014, which is actually the exact same day Five Nights at Freddy's was released. It's not related, I just thought that was worth mentioning. Orlando, which the current location opened January 30th, 2021 at Disney Springs, but prior to that, there was actually a now closed location that used to be located in the Florida Mall. Bloomington, Minnesota, in the Mall of America, which opened May 1st, 2021, Berlin, which opened October 2nd, 2021, and Henderson, Nevada, which is a smaller store located close to the FLM chocolate factory, which is owned by Mars Inc. For this video, I actually decided to go down to London to go visit M&M's World London, because it just looks freaking awesome, and also I can now show you the full building. Yes, I did travel all the way to London just to go to M&M's World. So, M&M's World London is located in Leicester Square, which is a very busy and popular part of the city. The store has 4 whole floors, with the bottom floor, which is labelled floor -2, having the bathrooms and also the home and baking merchandise. Floor -1 has personalised M&M's candies, where you can print your very own images on the M&M's, as well as a giant wall of M&M's candy and various other pieces of merchandise. Floor 0 then has just lots of general M&M's merch, with it being the first floor when you walk in, this makes sense. And then floor 1 has classic M&M's merch, like retro looking stuff with the old logo. There are genuinely so many M&M's products, it's insane. There's like shirts and hoodies, which, yeah, makes sense, but then there's also like plates, bowls, cups, Christmas ornaments, cushions, jewelry, and you know what? That's awesome. But you can only get it at the store. Like, the M&M's website doesn't sell any of the M&M's merch, except for, weirdly, these 4 things. Not sure why only these are available. However, this is only really an issue in the UK, as in the US, you can purchase all of these items. They sell so much more stuff. I mean, it's still not everything they have in store, but it's an improvement. This seems like an odd choice to me to not sell the merch online. People definitely like M&M's enough to buy an M&M's hat, but I don't know how many people like M&M's enough to travel to M&M's World to buy an M&M's hat. Although, come to think of it, because I couldn't get the merch online, I had to travel all the way down to London to get it, which I might not have done if I could get it online. Okay, maybe this was a genius move, because I also bought a ton of stuff from the store, because I probably wouldn't be able to get it at any other point. Wait, okay, this is a genius move, I guess. But anyway, M&M's Worlds and all that merchandise weren't the only thing they created to further use the characters, as there were also M&M's video games. That just shows how unique the M&M's mascots are, right? Like, what other candy brand could make a damn video game? Except for Smarties for some reason. And also whatever the fuck Skittles did. And also Sour Patch Kids. Oh, and also Jelly Belly. Okay, maybe this isn't as insane as I thought. But what is insane is the fact that the M&M's franchise has 9 games. That makes it like an actually fairly big games franchise. The first game to be released was M&M's The Lost Formulas for PC on September 28th, 2000. It's a fairly generic 3D platformer where you play as the yellow M&M who has left the M&M's minis in charge of the factory. The M&M's minis being these mischievous little candies made to promote the M&M's minis candies. And here, they're messing up the factory and losing the formulas. So you have to traverse the candy factory, stopping them and finding the titular lost formulas. It's fine. The game is very similar to Crash Bandicoot with its gameplay and controls and stuff, except just kind of not as good, but I like it. I don't think I'd like it as much if it was an M&M's theme though. Oh yeah, also, this is an edutainment game, meaning it has some educational elements, that being math problems. There are these parts in the game where you're given a math question you have to answer, with the questions getting hard throughout the game. Still though, they're not difficult questions on account of this being a game for children. Oh, what's 9 times 1? I have no idea. So yeah, it's fine. But this does just feel like it was forced into the game, so it could be classed as educational, and so that way, parents would see that and buy it for their kids. The second M&M's game was M&M's Minis Madness, which was released for the Game Boy Color on December 8th, 2000. This one is a side-scrolling 2D platformer, where you're able to play as red, yellow, Miss Green, and blue. No orange though. You're once again traversing the M&M's factory to try put a stop to the mischief of the Minis, who this time have overloaded the computer system. It's also just fine. It's a Game Boy Color platformer, it's fine. The M&M's games are shockingly not groundbreaking or anything, but they do the job they need to of existing and being M&M's video games. I could play this in full, but only because it's an M&M's game. That's really all it has going for it. There's nothing else that makes it stand out from the other 2D platformers. It is basically just a generic platformer. The third game in the series was M&M's Shell Shocked, released for the PlayStation 1 on September 30th, 2001. This game is basically just a port of M&M's The Lost Formulas for PS1, with the only difference being that the math elements have been removed here, and because of that, and also the name change, despite these being pretty much the exact same, it is classed as a different game. So there's not a whole lot more to say here. This is probably the slightly better version, but only because it doesn't have math in it. The next game was M&M's Blast, released on the 1st of December 2001 for the Game Boy Advance. You can play as red, yellow, blue, and Miss Green. Once again, no orange. It's a party game slash minigame collection where you and up to 3 AIs traverse one of 4 choosable boards and play minigames to collect points, with whoever has the most points winning. Also, you can just play the minigames on their own, which is nice. Would you believe me if I said this was just a perfectly fine minigames collection? Following this, there wouldn't be another M&M's game for many years, up until February 6, 2007, with the release of M&M's Break'em for DS and Game Boy Advance. This is a puzzle game where you have to go through stages and break all of these things in each stage. It's a fairly generic puzzle game, something you see nowadays advertised as a mobile game, and it kind of just has the M&M's branding slapped onto it. In fact, the company who made this game had previously created the game Gem Smashers, and wait a minute, it's the same game. So yeah, it seems that they just slapped M&M's onto Gem Smashers. But interestingly, this game actually has a story. The story here is that this evil peanut called Mr. Runch is trying to become an M&M, but that can't happen because he's rotten, and so a hazard. So the gang, which finally includes Orange, have to traverse many different lands to eventually defeat Mr. Runch, which they do, leaving him trapped in a crystal. From here, we'd see the next game release on December 5th, 2007 for Wii and Nintendo DS. This being the infamous M&M's Kart Racing, widely considered to be one of the worst video games ever made, currently having a 2.1 on Metacritic, and it's not hard to see why. So as you may have been able to guess, this is a kart racer, where you play as the M&Ms, and it's just like a bad game. It controls terribly, leading to constant crashes, like the kart crashing, not the game itself. It's just not fun, looks bad, and doesn't feel good to play. It's just like peak shovelware basically, only made to promote M&Ms. Just cheap garbage. The next game in the M&Ms franchise was M&M's Adventure, released for Wii and DS December 3rd, 2008. Fun fact, there was going to be a PlayStation 2 port of this game released alongside the other versions that has listings in places but never actually released, making it now lost media, as no copies are known to exist. The game here is a platformer. They're really going back to their roots with this one, and follows Red, Yellow and Green, who aren't voiced by their OG voice actors and sound awfully different.
Well, first up, I need to unlock the entry doors to each sector of the factory with my security key.
Lost what? I still got that milk chocolate magic.
I'd say that's a wrap.
Yeah, at least I got something right.
There's an error at the M&M's factory that causes all the candies to be ejected and all the factory's robots to go rogue. Oh no. So now they have to fix it. This game was also not very well received for similar reasons as M&M's Kart Racing. It's basically just more cheap shovelware. But people like this one a little more than M&M's Kart Racing at least. It does the job of being an M&M's platformer and not a whole lot more. The final M&M's game to be released, at least for consoles, console was M&M's Beach Party on March 11th, 2009, releasing only for the Wii. This one is a party game, minigame collection set on the beach, where you can play volleyball, skee ball, Mr. Wrench Slam, ring toss, kayak racing, and target shooting, as any of the, at the time, 5 M&Ms. Awesome. This would be the final console game, and also final game for a while, until 2022, when M&M's Adventure, different games, same name, was released for mobile devices. This is just like a generic puzzle game, but now M&M's themed. There are thousands of other games that are exactly like this, and this probably works for a mobile game, I guess, but I simply do not care for it in any way. Which is good, because I can't play it since it got delisted in July of 2025. It lasted like 3 years. RIP M&M's Adventure. You will probably not be missed, because I don't think anyone knew you existed. And that was every M&M's video game. It was really just like a complete downhill. I think Shell Shocked is the best game in the series, but it's just like, okay. Would I like to see a good M&M's game? Yes. Do I know what that could possibly be? No. I guess maybe if they did another platformer that controlled good and had interesting locations, that'd be the best option, but like, are they going to do that? Probably not, since licensed games aren't as big a thing as they were back in the 2000s. Still though, I would play a new M&M's game if they made one. Please make an M&M's game. I'll play it, so there'd be at least one sale. Now, at this point, right, there's 5 M&Ms, as I'm sure you're aware. I mean, I feel like I made that quite clear at this point. But out of them, 4 are male, and only 1 is female. And the only female character's whole shtick is being sexual and seductive, which, like, you know, from the outside is not a great look for the company. So M&M, seemingly realizing how this could look, decided to add a new Spokescandy for the first time in over a decade, with this happening during a commercial that premiered in the 2012 Super Bowl. This new character was Miss Brown, voiced by Vanessa Williams. She's a very intelligent, savvy businesswoman. I guess not businesswoman, business M&M. She's basically just a very smart professional woman, which was probably a smart move. Oftentimes in the commercials, she's seen to be very serious. So while some of the other M&Ms may be goofing off or getting up to mischief, Miss Brown gets straight to business. The commercial that introduced her to the world, and the one aired in the Super Bowl, sees her conversing with 2 other women at a party about how she has spoken with the Prime Minister. As she talks, this guy laughs at her, as because of the colour of her shell, he believes she's naked, since she looks very similar to how M&Ms look without a shell. Miss Brown shuts this down immediately and stands on business, telling this guy, "Nuh-uh, my shell is just brown." Then they leave looking embarrassed. W girl boss moment. Then Red walks in and also mistakes her for being naked. Then he too removes his shell, assuming people were just getting naked now, and dances to Sexy and I Know It. He even hits the Gangnam Style. The women and Miss Brown look shocked, and the commercial ends. A truly great way of introducing this character and her personality to the world. It showed how she doesn't mess around, evident by her immediate shutdown of these 2 guys, and how she's very serious, since she talked with the Prime Minister. And it also shows she's serious by how Red is acting all wacky, but she still keeps a serious tone, looking shocked that he'd even do something as absurd as strip naked. There we go, there's an analysis of an M&M's commercial. So now, there are 6 Spokescandies. From here, everything was great for M&M's, and therefore, the world. But that all changed on one fateful day in January of 2022.
The iconic candy company is giving the mascots makeovers to make them more inclusive.
The M&M says they're giving them a makeover. They're going to make them, quote, more dynamic for a progressive world.
One of the most notable changes includes the once controversial green M&M's design.
The green M&M, you will notice, is no longer wearing sexy boots. Now she's wearing sensible sneakers.
Will M&M's still melt in your hands if they identify as trans?
On January 20th, 2022, M&M's officially announced it was redesigning its characters, with Mars stating, "We took a deep look at our characters, both inside and out, and have evolved their look, personalities, and backstories to be more representative of today's society. As the world changes, so do we." This redesign consisted of tweaking the personalities a little, removing the prefixes from the Spokescandies, making Miss Green and Miss Brown now just green and brown, and changing the Candy's tan limbs to be white/grey instead, having Orange tie his shoes as well as having him embrace his anxiety, and most notably, changing Miss Brown's heels to be a little shorter, and changing Miss Green's sexy boots for sneakers. Remember, I said that'd be important. People were outraged at this, mostly at the changes to Miss Green, or now simply just Green. The once sexy sexy M&M was now just an M&M. They had changed her sexy white boots for unsexy white sneakers. And I mean, just look at her old render compared to her new one. It was clear they were attempting to unsexy the M&M. The heckin' woke mob done got to the M&Ms. The response to this was crazy. Immediately, riots broke out in the streets. It was uncontrollable chaos. People began looting and attacking each other. It seemed like the end times were upon us. Okay, none of that happened, but people were genuinely pissed at this. And like, I guess I kinda get it. Like, I'm clearly a big M&Ms fan, but this is a fairly minor redesign. They're basically the same, really. I think people were most mad at like the reasoning for it. Just all the, we're being inclusive now bullshit. Like, that's great on the surface, but this is a multi-billion-dollar company at the end of the day, and I don't think they really care about this stuff. This was clearly some sort of move to make M&Ms look good, but every company was doing it, and it was so see-through and forced. To be clear, the world being more inclusive is great. I know, a very crazy statement, right? But brands attempting to forcefully appear more inclusive just so people can be like, oh, wow, they're such a good brand, is just, I don't know, cringe, I guess? Like, bro, shut up, man. It's kind of the same thing as like why Duolingo, Ryanair, KFC Espanol, Opera GX, or any other brand's videos aren't funny, because brands aren't people. When a person hops on a trend, it's because they think it's cool or funny. When a brand does it, it's for attention. The same applies here. When a person is like, we should be nice and inclusive to people and stuff, it's because they're a good person, right? When a brand does it, it's to look good and get attention, which then leads to more profit. And, you know, who knows? Maybe M&Ms did just want to be inclusive solely to be nice, but at the end of the day, a big part of this decision probably had to do with looking good, and that makes it come off as forced. On the positive side though, along with this move, they did also donate millions to various causes, which isn't something you can criticize. That's great, no notes. Anyway, people were actually mad because they changed the sexy boots on the green M&M. That isn't a joke. And that, well, that's just funny. Like, in the commercials, they would sexualize and have people first over the green M&M as a joke, with it being funny because of the absurdity of the idea that someone would genuinely find the green M&M sexy, but real people got mad when she was made, I guess, less sexy. Many of these people were probably on like layer 7 irony, but some real people were genuinely upset at this change just for the fact the M&Ms weren't Lang anymore. This got covered by Tucker Carlson on Fox News, and oh, it's just a beautiful segment. Chef's kiss. This is one of the greatest things to air on TV. It comes off like parody, like something The Onion would have made, but it's real, and that makes it 10 times funnier.
The green M&M, you will notice, is no longer wearing sexy boots. Now she's wearing sensible sneakers. The other big change is that the brown M&M has, quote, transitioned from high stilettos to lower block heels. Also less sexy. That's progress. M&Ms will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous.
Just the fact there's like a grown man in a TV studio with a whole crew filming it and broadcasting it, and like having everything prepared for this segment. This is the news, by the way. And I mean, I've actively blocked out all of the news for about 5 years. So, you know, I have like no idea what's happening in the world really, except for the most basic bare minimum knowledge about barely anything. But even I know there was definitely something more important to cover on the news. Like, literally anything else matters so much more than the M&Ms not being fit anymore. But yeah, so moving on. In September 2022, they'd introduced the 7th Spokescandy, this being Purple, who was a female peanut M&M voiced by Amber Ruffin. Now, immediately, there's a problem here. Just open a bag of M&Ms. Where's the purple ones? Yeah, purple M&Ms don't come in bags of M&Ms. They exist, but only in like bulk bags and like the big candy dispensers at M&M's World and probably other candy stores. Purple is supposed to represent inclusivity and acceptance. Cool, but you know, I find it ironic that the M&M they introduced to represent inclusivity isn't included in bags of M&Ms. As for Purple's personality, she's not like the other girls. She's kinda quirky. She's so crazy. Love her. The commercial introducing Purple featured her singing an original song called I'm Just Gonna Be Me, which is about her being nervous about being the new Spokescandy, but then just being herself and everything being a-okay. Awesome stuff. You can stream this song, by the way, and for every stream, M&M's donated $1 up to $500,000 to the organization Sing for Hope, which is nice. People didn't really like the purple M&M. Personally, I don't hate her, but like, she's not my favorite. She's probably bottom of my ranking actually, but still I don't dislike her. The others are just just better. She hasn't really been around long enough at this point to have appeared enough for her to be established enough in the Spokescandy team, I guess. But regardless of what people thought of purple, the fact is there's now 7 Spokescandies. Following this, on January 23rd, 2023, M&M's would take inspiration from Max Keeble and make a big move. That being to post a statement about how they're putting an indefinite pause on the Spokescandies because of the polarizing response to the changes made to the designs the previous year. And they said that they'd now be replaced with a spokesperson, this being Maya Rudolph. Now this, well, was basically rage bait, I guess. They were doing this as a marketing thing. I mean, wait, that's stupid to say. This whole video was all marketing. But this was to get people talking. However, people were quick to sniff out that this probably wasn't true. I mean, just look at when it was posted. January 23rd. There was a certain event taking place not long after this post. An event where like hundreds of millions of people sit down to watch a bunch of commercials that are sometimes interrupted by a football game. The Super Bowl. Yeah, this was a Super Bowl ad bait, and most people were able to pick up on that. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to realize that. Even famously bold and retarded individual Keemstar correctly pointed out in the replies to this tweet that this was Super Bowl ad bait. Gold star for you. Still though, somehow, some people genuinely believed this and actually were mad. Again. But yeah, the Super Bowl came and they aired their ads that had Maya Rudolph as the spokesperson, whilst having red and yellow appear in the background, with red holding a sign up that says help. And then they revealed that the Spokescandies were back, with them having a commercial where the Spokescandies themselves announced this. So yeah, an obvious marketing stunt, but a damn successful one. The tweet of them announcing this quote unquote change has 52 million views. So I mean, it worked. Anyway, I want to conclude this video by asking a question. After all this, after everything the M&M's brand has been through, after the 9 video games and all the different Spokescandies that have been introduced, after the 8 different giant stores, why has there never been an M&M's movie? Like, that just makes sense. The M&M's all have established personalities, they're already characters. And if they make a movie now, they've basically been advertising it for about 3 decades. How has no one thought of this? Everyone knows the M&M's characters, and nowadays movies get made about anything. Now why is that? Because it's much safer to pump like $100 million into a movie that's based off a pre-existing thing people already know and therefore already has an audience than to make something original. So why has there not been an M&M's movie? Everyone knows the M&M Spokescandies because they've been on TV for 30 years. Everyone's familiar with them and their personalities, so it's likely that people would go see the M&M's movie. And I mean, we got stuff like the Emoji Movie, a movie based off of emojis, and we're apparently going to be getting movies based off of Hot Wheels, Magic 8 Balls, Polly Pocket, Rock'em Sock'em Robots, and goddamn Uno. And you're telling me nobody has thought to make an M&M's movie? Like, it'd be perfect. Not only would it make money, but it would also advertise M&M's in the process, right? And moviegoers definitely know what M&M's are, because I've been to so many cinemas that have M&M's present. Not just like they sell M&M's in the snack area, they have like M&M's machines and M&M's branding on like the walls and stuff. I think M&M's have like deals with multiple cinema chains in the UK or something, because they are just like in every movie theater. So yeah, if anyone from M&M's is watching, make an M&M's movie and give me 10 grand for thinking of that idea, thanks. Anyway, that concludes my look into the wacky world of M&M's. If you did enjoy, which you probably did because you watched till the end of the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and also subscribe to my second channel where I'll be posting my uncut footage from M&M's World London. And also check out Our Stupid School, it's a cartoon I made and I'm in. Also shout out to Tremendous Brion / TBLE1614HD, who is a really freaking sweet tier member. And oh yeah, I'm on Cameo for $5. I think that covers everything. Yeah, bye.